Well, this is a bit of a rare occurrence. It's a Saturday and we only have one game. We're so used to double headers on all weekends. Here we have a rare Saturday to put our feet up and come in the evening and look at just one crucial game. Crucial because it's two teams desperate for every possible point that they could scratch out and try and harbor some sort of hope of a playoff spot. It's Kolkata against Hyderabad. Both teams who started, well, Kolkata started very brightly, then went down. Hyderabad started terribly, went shooting upwards, and then their graph sort of went down again. Can both teams get on an ascendancy? Can they get on a roll? Well, we're going to talk about all that right here on Cricbuzz Live. I'm joined by Lisa Sthalekar and Michael Vaughan. Michael, a few weeks ago, this contest would have had a very different feel to it. Two teams riding high, almost saying, are the playoffs almost here? Now things have changed.
Yeah, and pretty much both teams are out, barring a miracle. Yeah, they've just not played good enough cricket. I mean, it's a tough tournament, the IPL, because teams are so good. You've got world-class performers, world-class individuals, but collectively these teams have just not managed to get their better players playing. I mean, KKR swapped and changed throughout the whole of the IPL. I guess in the last game, they went back to what you would have thought would have been the starting 11, and it worked. They got a victory. The Sunrisers just don't seem to be able to find a win. From all those wins that they had, they're just struggling to get back on the winning trail. And it's just been because particularly someone like Kane Williamson has just not arrived and had any kind of IPL this time round.
Yeah, and if you look at the entire tournament, Lisa, Mumbai, Chennai, with all those titles between them, the two teams playing tonight have both won the tournament. So it'll only be Rajasthan with that solitary title who will be a possible title holder for a repeat.
Yeah, it's just amazing how quickly it's changed around, isn't it? The fact that big mega auction just has really thrown a number of teams off. I mean, we talk about Mumbai, the auction didn't necessarily go for them. You know, the core group of players that they had built over a long period of time were gutted out and kind of farmed out to everyone else. So it's taken a while for these teams that have won titles to kind of get back to their best. But the interesting thing about Sunrisers as well, just touching on them, is, you know, whilst we talk about the batting order for both sides, also Sunrisers, they've leaked a lot of runs as well, 190 in the last 4 games that they've lost. So hopefully the two injured players come back in.
Well, as far as playoff spots are concerned, yes, it looks grim, but it's not mathematically out. You know, people keeping an eye on different sports are seeing something similar in the English Premier League. It's getting to that stage when there are about 2 or 3 teams who are like, one more game. If we lose one, could it be the end? So it's not the end yet, but Michael, still a bit of a possibility if we have a look at this. For Hyderabad, they get to 12 points, yet another game, couple of games. So certainly Hyderabad look like having definitely better chance than Kolkata. They can get to 16.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't see how 14 is going to be enough. I mean, you just look at Rajasthan and Bangalore. In 3rd and 4th, they're already on 14. Rajasthan with 2 to play. Bangalore with that 1 game to play. So I think KKR are done and dusted. And it's going to take a near-on miracle, you'd think, for the Sunrisers to suddenly get on a winning trail of winning the last 3 games from playing pretty poor cricket. It's possible, but all those players that have just struggled so far, they've got to try and find a little bit of confidence from somewhere. It's not easy, and particularly when these players that have not been doing so well, they're in these bubbles once again. You can't find that energy from outside of the circle that you're in. It's really not an easy time for a player when you're struggling in this kind of situation. But somehow Kane Williamson's got to get his players to believe that they can do it. And if they do it today, they'll hopefully do it in the next game. And then it gives them a little bit of a sniff for that last game to get to 16.
Yeah, the one we're really looking forward to is when they take on Punjab, because that just looks like being a clash for someone knocking someone out. Just let's have a look at this. We showed you what's happened to them so far, Lisa. This is what, after that, what lies ahead for them. One of them is Punjab. We saw what happened previously. But the good thing for them is that they've got some of the usual suspects back. And we'll, of course, confirm the team. Let's confirm the team right now, Lisa, and you can talk us through why they'll be relieved to have match winner Marco Jansen, definite match winner Washington Sundar, and Natarajan. Well, we can say that about all 3.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, the big gets for them have been Washington Sundar, and and Natarajan, since they've been kind of out of the way through the split webbing and the injuries that they sustained, they haven't looked a good side. Like I said, they've leaked too many runs, 190. And we've said it on Cricbuzz Live a number of times, and Hyderabad's way is bowl well, keep them to about a 160 score and then chase it down. Their batting isn't as dynamic as maybe it used to be with David Warner and Johnny Bairstow. Kane Williamson hasn't fired, Abhishek Sharma as well. So they've got to kind of work their way to a lower total. So maybe those guys coming back in from a bowling perspective will allow them to potentially, keep Kolkata down to a total that they think that they can chase.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you're winning and if you manage to get to the playoffs, you kind of can paper over something like Kane Williamson. It's happening with Bangalore and Virat Kohli. If they continue to win and they get to the playoffs, you can say, okay, look, it doesn't really matter. But Michael, if Hyderabad don't end up making it, this will be a big factor.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard when, everyone's expecting your form to carry on. For Kane Williamson, he's always been so consistent with the IPL. He's always been consistent playing for New Zealand. But I keep saying, I mean, these bio bubbles are doing different things to players. You're seeing some players that are getting on with it and it's fine. I think when you're on a roll and you're playing well, you kind of forget about the bubble and you just get on with your life. I think when you're not having a great time of it, I think everything else adds up and it's very difficult to get out of that little trough that we're seeing quite a few. I mean, you're looking at world-class performers. Rohit Sharma's had a struggle. Virat Kohli's had a struggle. Kane Williamson has had a struggle. Johnny Bairstow until yesterday struggled. These are world-class performers. And, I don't think we can be too critical of these players just at the minute because of what they've gone through. But clearly, Kane Williamson's performances are one of the reasons why Sunrisers have not really played this year. If he plays really well and consistently, he's that glue, he's that rock, and everyone else can play around him. Without that consistency and that rock at the top, it's very, very difficult to get those scores and feel confident that you can win games of cricket. So, yeah, he's been disappointing, but understandable. He's a human being, not easy in these bubbles.
I think
go ahead, Lisa.
To point out as well, we saw the strike rate just under 100, but then you kind of go back another layer, and in the power play, his strike rate's only 79. So, there's an expectation now when you watch T20 cricket, the first 6 overs, you've got to be explosive. You've got to be striking it at, 130, 140, capitalizing on just the 2 fielders outside the inner circle. And because he's opening with a younger guy, Abhishek Sharma, it's trying to find that balance. And Abhishek Sharma started really well, and maybe he was the go-getter, and Kane Williamson was the one able to kind of almost build himself up, but it hasn't quite gelled. That partnership hasn't worked. So I don't know if they make a change or whether they just keep trying because they feel that that's the best 2 to open. But I do hope that Kane Williamson scores some runs. I hate to see guys that have been so successful for such a long period of time just find it difficult to find their runs out in the middle.
Yeah.
Well, let's just try and see if we can just make a suggestion. Maybe we talked a lot about what Punjab did. Mayank Agarwal, maybe not in the same level as some of the players we mentioned, a Rohit or a Virat or a Williamson, but still he's contributed, top class player. They just decided to move him down. Johnny Bairstow find the spot he most like. Is there a case, Michael, of maybe Kane Williamson finding a different position for himself in this order?
Yeah, I think that would be quite sensible. Sometimes when you're going out there and doing the same role, and you're not quite doing it as well as you would have liked, just a little switch number 3 or number 4, it can just trigger you into a different mindset because you have to think a little bit differently in the different positions that you're batting in the order. I mean, I'm always amazed that, England don't use Johnny Bairstow at the top of the order in T20 cricket because they've got Butler and Jason Roy. I'm staggered that, they haven't used Johnny Bairstow at the top of the order. Punjab, I just think he's that good a player. He's destructive. But for Kane Williamson, if he moves to 3, 4, yeah, maybe we'll see that this evening. It's just sometimes a little change. And because he's so good, he'll be able to adapt to any position. And yeah, just that move might be worth them trying it tonight at Sunrise, just to see if it can trigger him into action.
I mean, it's worked in other places, Lisa. I remember Michael and I did a few Sunrisers games together, and every time, and those were winning games for them. And every time you'd see Michael echoing the fact that even if Williamson hadn't scored a lot of runs, that it was the Williamson team, the Williamson way. They won, they chased, they did the right things. So obviously he has a role to play, and it doesn't necessarily have to be at the top of the order.
No, it doesn't. I mean, a prime example is last year, Owen Morgan. He was really struggling to score runs, yet he was leading the side exceptionally well. They were able to go all the way to the final. So, if things aren't necessarily working, maybe having less overs and him just going big at the end might be exactly what he needs just to break the shackles, because he's such a clever guy. He knows where the bowlers are going to bowl, things like that. So if you kind of take out the pressure of, hey, we need you to bat for the entire innings, yet you're eating up balls, that weighs on you no matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're a Virat, if you're a Kane Williamson. When you're taking up balls and you know the rest of the order is there waiting in the wings, then you probably look to play that rash shot. So if they drop him down the order, it might be something that just allows him to play some free cricket, which, to be honest, that's probably the only thing they haven't tried yet.
Yep, well, free cricket, we'll see. Again, a reminder, just in case we didn't remind you, it's yet another team who have decided, and this is a bit of a rarity in an evening game, but we did say it will start happening definitely in the second half of the tournament, is a side winning the toss and deciding to bat first in the evening. Kolkata have done that, Shreyas Iyer has done that, and let's take you to their 11. They've made a couple of changes. Again, like Hyderabad, desperate to get Umesh Yadav back in the fold, and they've got him back. In a sense, it was an expected change to not see Pat Cummins there because of his injury. And the other swap they've had to make is Sam Billings, or didn't have to make, but they did make, is Sam Billings coming back in for Sheldon Jackson, Michael. So again, it looks a little bit more settled. I think that it took them a while to find what should be close to their best 11.
Yeah, I mean, they swapped and changed the batting lineup. I like that top four. I think it's got a bit of decent substance to it, for real quality players. I think when you're swapping and changing your team, as a player, you're always looking over your shoulder thinking, is that me next? If I have one bad game, am I going to be the one to miss out? So I just don't think they've managed to find that consistency. And that's because they've been losing, not playing great. But I do think Baz McCullum and his management team could have been more consistent for a bit longer at the start, just to try and get that consistently going through the squad. Cummins, he's got that niggle, so he'll be missed, but it's a good replacement in Yadav. It looks a good team on paper. On paper, you think, well, that's a decent T20 team, but for whatever reason, they've just not managed to get any kind of consistency or flamboyancy. They really haven't had any flamboyancy in the KKR side this year. It's been just pretty normal stuff. There's nothing that's really surprised us. So somehow they've got to try and find that kind of spark. Hopefully it'll be tonight.
Interesting, Michael should use that word, Lisa, because there are some teams who just go about their business and pick up 2 points. Kolkata have never been one of those, and they probably need to play that kind of game to get back on track.
Yeah, well, this is where their senior players, their senior internationals, their senior Indian players need to kind of stand up and give that spark. They're the ones that have been retained, been bought at auction for a heavy price. And when you look at that side, you feel for Venkatesh Iyer as well. He's batting in different positions, and they've moved him around a fair bit. Nitish Rana is someone, and obviously the skipper that needs to kind of stand up. Andre Russell, he's given us a couple of big innings, but nothing of real standout where he's taken the side across the line regularly, which is what we saw in maybe 3-4 years ago. Sunil Narayan has bowled well, needs to pick up more wickets. Southie's been good, and Chakravarti hasn't been as effective as they would have liked. So, guys that you normally look at and you look at their names and you go, yeah, these guys are serious contributors within the IPL, just haven't fired at all. And that's why Kolkata are in this tricky position.
Yeah, they were, of course, Chakravarti, one of the 4 retained players. Other than Rinku Singh, the 11 Kolkata have put out in the park today is identical to the one that they started the tournament with. So lots has happened in between, but maybe getting back on track before it's too late. Or is it too late? Well, we feel mathematically it just might be. But what do all of you feel, whether it's on that topic or anything else that you like to ask us questions about. Hashtag Ask Cricbuzz Live is the way to get to it. And this is what we have from Shivani Murpani. Do Kolkata need to blow it up next season? I like the choice of words, Shivani. Given how their squad is presently, is a massive overhaul needed, or can a few tweaks get them back on track? Do they even have an option to blow it up so soon after a big auction, Michael?
I'm not too sure what the rules are. Are they allowed to blow it up? I don't know. What could they do? Are there players out there that could improve them? I'm sure there'll be one or two that step up to the plate that we don't know a great deal about in the T20 World Cup. There'll be one or two players that have standout tournaments that necessarily at the minute don't have IPL contracts, so you could look for one or two of those players. I'll throw in a name that I would try and get if I was then. I'd go for Joe Root to bat at the top of the order and just be consistent. Play a Kane Williamson style role at the top of the order. He bowls a bit of off spin, part of the leadership group. So I would throw that name in as someone from the UK, but there'll be other names that step up to the plate. And I think fundamentally you can change and you can bring new players in, but they've just got to try and get the best out of what they've got. And that's been the disappointing factor, that they've just not managed to get the best out of the group that they've got. They haven't got a bad group of players. They've got a group of players that have got pretty much everything covered for T20 cricket. They've just not managed to get that collective and that team ethic going, and too much swapping and changing. But the squad, that squad is a good squad of players. Is it the best squad in the IPL? Probably not. But is it a squad that you would have fancied to get to the eliminations? Yes, you would fancy them, and they've just not managed to play good enough cricket.
I think I think the fact that you look at where they've probably faltered a little bit in this edition is probably their top order. None of them are really striking it at a strike rate that's acceptable in T20 cricket. So whether that's them technically not getting things right or in a little bit of a slump, only the coaching staff will really know those answers and those current players. But if they feel that they're not the right people moving forward, then maybe that's the tweak that I would make at the top of the order. Try and find a couple of go-getters to get your side off to a really good start. And then your Russells and Nitish Rana and even Venkatesh Iyer coming down the order might give you a little bit more than what they have done this year.
Yeah. So give us a name, Lisa. Give us a name to counter Joe Root. Michael threw us one.
I'll give you another one.
Okay, go.
I'll go. He's close to you, Lise. Australian. He's about 6'5", 6'6". Bowls 90 miles an hour. Smacks them.
Cameron Green.
Good. The other one I was thinking of was Josh Philippi, a keeper in the back.
Yeah.
So he came out and played for Bangalore, I think, last year, a couple of games. And I know AB de Villiers was very impressed with what he did. He's still a youngster, really. But yeah, Cameron Green, obviously, we don't get to see the thing for me back home. Our test guys don't even play Big Bash. So I can't remember the last time I've seen him play T20 cricket. So he's got all of the makings. You're right. He's a tall lad, whacks the ball. I've seen him in test cricket, bomb him regularly. He just goes in.
Need bigger beds. Need a bigger bed for him. He's huge.
But he's an excite machine. I don't know if CA would allow him. They've kind of got him in a little bit of cotton wool. They've been very careful with how they've managed his workloads. But yeah, there you go. There's a few names.
Now, the only question is, Lisa and Michael, who do we send those names to if we have to forward the suggestion? Should we send it to the captain or should we send it to the management and the ownership? Because there's been a few talking points, whether you like it or not. Shreyas Iyer, post-match interview. Could it have been a slip of tongue where he said it's really difficult to tell players about axings? Coach, and at times CEO is also obviously involved in team selections. Two ways to look at this, Michael. One is that it's good to have everyone as part of the fold. Another is you're not quite sure who's calling the shots.
Well, my belief in sport is that, the CEO is there to count the coffers. And once that management structure is put in place, so the coach and the captain, a CEO should be nowhere near the actual selection side of the operation. He's done his role. Go and count some cash. Whatever the cash that's coming in, that's his job. Let the cricket people make the cricketing decisions. That's why they've been put in that position. And if they don't do it well enough, well, you sack them. That's the nature of professional sport. But allow them that power and allow them that freedom to pick the teams, come up with the right roles, the right solutions. And at the end of the IPL, you decide, are you happy with that coach and that captain? Have they done well enough for what you've given them? And if you're not happy as a CEO, then you get rid of them. Simple as that. But you do not, as a CEO, get involved in any kind of selectorial decisions. I just think, stay in your office. Stay in your office. Look at your computer. Simple.
My first reaction to that comment was he probably didn't mean it like it is, because I'll get Lisa's thoughts on this. But, having known the franchise well enough, having actually worked with them during the auction, having known Venki myself for years, he is the last person who'd be walking in and saying, I'd like to pick this person or pick that person. He'd much rather be in that office. And if he's called, he'd be like, I'll give you my opinion. That's about it. Lisa, your take on this?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know the guy personally. I've never seen how he works with the coaching staff. You hear all different stories about all different franchises, but you don't know what to take as truth or just gossip. Sometimes one team might throw out something about another team. But one thing I can tell you is that, I'm the Sixers, for the Sydney Sixers, the list manager. Now, I just help the coach and the captain come up with a list, but never do I get involved in team selection in the tournament. Just come up with the squad, and it's up to them at the end of the day. So I do think you've got to know your role within the organisation. You've got to trust the people that you've employed and let them do the job. And like Michael said, at the end of the day, if they're not doing the job that you've entrusted them to do, then you have to move them on.
Yeah, but I just, as I said, I suspect it was just words taken out of context, because, so much was happening, and it could be looked at the other way, that you're just trying to say we're a close-knit family. Everyone's in there, but we'll let that be. But we won't let Kolkata be for the moment, because if you don't talk about the CEO or the captain, it's the coach who's been in the eye of the storm, Michael Vaughan. Baz McCullum can't go and hide under a rock anymore, can he?
No, I mean, it was surprising when his name was linked in the early parts of the week with the test job. I didn't see that at all. I thought, white ball cricket I could see. I'm led to believe that, Robert Key, the new director, was quite happy for an IPL coach to continue in the IPL and then take on the England white ball role, because it allows them to do both. That test job for England as a coach is probably the job that you want, because I think you'll be able to look very good very quickly, because the test team can't keep playing to the standard that they have done in the last year. And the England side have gone through lots of bubbles, and it's not been easy. So I think whoever got that position as the England Test match coach, I think will look quite good quite quickly, because I think the team will play better. And everyone will say, it's because Baz McCullum's gone in charge. It'll probably just be because they can't play any worse, and they've got to play better. And they'll go back to Broad and Anderson. You can see that, in English conditions, it's going to be, an England side that's always hard to beat. But it did surprise me. The Stokes-Baz McCullum combination, the captain coach, Lisa will know as well as anybody, it's the key combo. If those two are aligned and working together, you create a great partnership. If those two don't quite hit it off, I'm sure they will. But if they're both too gung-ho and too positive and too, that kind of style of cricket, playing ultra positive, I'm not too sure that's going to work. So somewhere there's going to have to be a bit of ham and egg. Someone's going to have to decide that one of them's going to be ham and the other one's going to have to be egg. Because if not, and you don't get the differences in terms of management styles, it could only go one way. But I think I was doing the dinner yesterday, and I said to all the audience, I said, June the first test match, I wouldn't arrive late. I wouldn't want to miss it, because you can just imagine Baz McCullum, Ben Stokes, they'll be revving that England side up. They'll be flying through the gates of Lords. They'll be trying to whack it to all parts. They'll be bowling bouncers. They'll have about 25 slips. There'll be about 18 short legs. You can only imagine what it may look like, but it's going to be exciting.
I like the analogy, because that's exactly the sandwich I've just ordered for myself.
Oh, nice.
And it does go well together. Ham and egg. Yeah, ham and egg. That's exactly what I've ordered. Lovely. So I know there's McCullum in there and there's Stokes in there. But Lisa, I mean, as Michael just said, it's an unlikely combination, number one. But also, you'd expect McCullum to be going around the world in different white ball jobs. And even if you say white ball, you're talking T20, not even ODI.
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned it to a few people because I'd heard the whisper, and I said, "Oh, I think Baz McCullum is able to take the test job." And they're like, "Test job? You mean white ball?" I go, "No, seriously, it's red ball." And the thing is that he hasn't coached red ball cricket at all, so it's going to be a development for him, no doubt, as well. And I mean, he played Test cricket in such an exciting way, and maybe that's where ECB are thinking, you know, in order to keep Test cricket alive, and maybe this goes to a bigger conversation as well about where does Test cricket fit in the psyche of spectators and fans now? Do we have to change the format in the sense or how it's played? You know, an exciting way of playing Test cricket. You know, those are the conversations that always get brought up around Test cricket. And maybe, and they're hoping with a new era, a generation of Ben Stokes, the way that he has played Test cricket, you know, you literally stop what you're doing because you know that he can change the game. And maybe with Baz McCullum there, he's going to empower the rest. I agree with Michael. I think they're very similar. And I mean, he's already joked. He goes, "I can't wait to team up with my Kiwi mate." I mean, the English captain. So, you know, there's already a little bit of, you know, joke going between the two of them. But I feel like they're very similar in personality in the sense that I think they'll get on really well. The question will be if things don't quite go well, how will they cope? And I guess we'll only find out. Fingers crossed for England that doesn't happen for a while. They burst onto the scene and they play an exciting brand of Test cricket.
What will happen also is, of course, that means a void left for Kolkata. It's another long discussion, of course, what's going to happen in the franchise. But just in context of the here and now, Michael, Venkatesh Iyer is someone who's obviously looked to Brendan McCullum for a lot of support. He's in a position where he's not quite sure of his role right now, partly form, partly other things. Where do you see Venkatesh Iyer vis-a-vis KKR minus McCullum?
I think we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, without McCullum, they're obviously going to have to try and find a new coach. There's plenty of options. I don't think they're going to be struggling for really good options to take over that position. You might find that one or two that don't get the England white ball job. So Matthew Mott, Simon Katic, Paul Collingwood, I think will get it, but you just never know where they're all going to end up. So there's not going to be a difficulty for KKR to get a high quality coach. Venkatesh, he's just got to play with freedom. Got to try and play with freedom. And it's T20 cricket. You've got to somehow, in your mind, just free yourself up, stay still, watch the ball, and try and clear your head of all the nonsense. There's so much nonsense that these players have to go through these days with everything that happens with the game, social media. They get put under more pressure than any other era. But those that do well seem to be able to just box that to one side and go, right, still a ball coming at me. Can I whack it? Can I whack it for 6? No. Can I whack it for 4? No. All right, I'll just get a single and get down the other end. Try and keep it as simple as you possibly can.
And that's the role, Lisa, that he was given last year.
Yeah, and he did it so well, didn't he? So it's a shame that we haven't seen the best of him. Just a name to throw in who I think they may go back to, Trevor Bayliss.
TB?
Yeah, his record's pretty good in white ball cricket. Obviously, it was with Sunrisers, no longer with an IPL team. If Venki Mysore wants someone that he knows and trusts and has had success with, maybe TB.
There you go. We've thrown out suggestions for players, possible replacements. We've got a coach replacement. Just you find it all here on Cricbuzz Live. Come to us. We'll give you all the suggestions. There you have it. But what we'll also give you is answers to some tough quiz questions. The only question is it always as tough as every day? We'll find out. What has Joy dished out for us on this Saturday night? 3 players made their debut in a test in Bangalore in the 70s. The only Indian among them played just 2 tests, but the other 2 became 2 of the greatest batters ever. So test in Bangalore, the only Indian among them, so the other 2 was in the opposition. 2 of them became the greatest batters ever. Name all 3 cricketers. I think I know in which direction we're possibly going, but I won't say any more than that. Interesting question. Figure it out. Hashtag Cricbuzz Live. Get the answers back as quickly as you possibly can. Now, prediction time. Things have changed a lot. Michael always gets his help. Have you talked to the committee yet, Michael Vaughan? What are they saying? Kolkata have won the toss, batting first, second half.
Let me just have a word. 165.
165. Yeah, they've had to sort of temper their choices down. Lisa?
I'm going to go a little bit lower. 157.
157 is really low.
Yeah.
Could they possibly get something a little bit higher, or the wickets are just not conducive to that anymore? Why not? Let me give them a few more runs. Let me give them 175. 175, not too high. 175 looks like it could be a winning total here, but Kolkata definitely need to get a winning total on the board. Hyderabad, on the other hand, need to keep winning if they want to keep a chance. Both these teams hanging by a thread. Kolkata's thread is a little flimsier than Hyderabad's. One quick reminder of the points table before we wrap up here. This is where they stand. 4 teams at the bottom, let's remind you folks, have all got an IPL title under their belt. The only ones in the top who have it are Rajasthan with a solitary title. Gujarat, Lucknow, Bangalore, Delhi and Punjab have none. Possible that one of them will get their hands on it this time. Well, that's how close it is. That's how topsy-turvy the season has been. We'll try and not stay topsy-turvy ourselves. We'll see you in the 10th over for Cricbuzz Combox and back in the mid-innings for a rare Saturday single header. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Michael. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you very soon. This is Cricbuzz Live.